Welcome to season 3 of Eye of the Storm, a Guelph Storm podcast with myself, Ryan Drury, the voice of your Guelph Storm on Rogers TV. And who better to kick off a fresh season with than the man in the big chair, the architect, the head honcho, the general manager of your Guelph Storm, and one of my favorite people in hockey, Mr. George Burnett. George, how are you? How was your summer?
Good, long, ready to go again.
Absolutely. I know you are, and I know that you and the staff put a lot of work in, obviously, over an off season, like you mentioned, that was a little longer than you guys wanted. I know the goal, even late into the year last year, was to make the playoffs. You guys almost did. You were right there, right until the end. As you look back on last year and the ups and downs, the really tough injury trouble that the team faced, particularly on the back end, as you reflect back on last year, what are some things that kind of come to mind when you and the staff kind of look back on it?
Well, I think there's no question that we dealt with some things that nobody wishes on you, but it's part of it. I think a lot of people were thrust into some minutes and important minutes that maybe that wouldn't have happened in a normal situation. We're I think have a group returning. I'm sure we're going to talk about training camp with the numbers that we had coming to training camp, but I think it's a unique time in the game. There's a lot of kids that now want to play or think they can play, and I think we've provided an opportunity for many kids. When you have a 50-man protected list, you have three overages and now three imports. It's tough to have a small camp, so eligibility is not a concern. So most everybody was here, and then some tryout kids as well, and a few of them continue to be here and looking to battle for an opportunity to move forward.
Yeah, the hockey landscape has certainly changed in junior hockey, obviously with the NCAA ruling changing. And I believe the Storm opened with 74 players at camp. I was there day 2. I mean, it's a lot of players. It's a lot more guys than people are used to. And it's certainly an adjustment. And, George, I don't want to ask you your opinion on the NCAA rule unless you want to share it. But I more want to ask what has changed in terms of being a general manager in junior hockey and running a scouting staff in junior hockey with these new landscapes that we're looking at.
Well, there's a number of things that are changing, and I think we're going to need to be a year or two into this before we know exactly. It can be a very positive thing, but as we've seen here recently, we haven't experienced it yet. But it's not going to surprise me that it hits at any time where teams have lost a player or two or three, and in our league that weren't anticipated to go this early. So as I said, if we're moving on, I think the perfect scenario, if we use Jake Caravella as an example, great player for us, battled through some injuries, unfortunately, wasn't signed, but wanted to continue with, 4 more years of runway to be a pro. And he's got a scholarship at Ohio State. So a top institution, he leaves at 21. No problem. Continue the runway to play hockey and continue to be an elite student. The players, if they're leaving after their 19-year-old year, I think that's something that we're kind of willing to give up. If it's it's and I think for the most part the schools are very respectful, but there's no question that there's going to be schools that want your top young player, and we see in Lev's case he made the choice to go. It wasn't a big surprise for us. We knew when he left Green Bay, he had decommitted from Harvard and to go to Penn State as a pure freshman. We thought that there might have been a consideration or some consideration to consider another year. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. They're one of the top teams in the NCAA this year, with only 3 seniors graduating, and it'll be interesting to see how Lev. We wish him well, but it'll be interesting to see how he fits into their program and their team at this time. So it is new, accepting some of these players back, should they not be comfortable with their decisions, is something that we're clearly able to do and ready to do, and I'm sure that will happen. Not sure how much it'll happen, but I think there's lots of kids that may have had an agreement to go to a D1 school, maybe even a smaller school, and the schools asked them to hold back for a year or two because of what's happening with the CHL. I think the priority is bringing the CHL players in versus maybe the kids that are playing in the BCHL or the CCHL or in the OJ, for example, or the GOJHL here in our area. So I think those kids are kind of caught in the limbo on how they're going to continue to develop and keep their opportunity that might that's expected to be available for them a year or two down the line. So it's a changing landscape. I think it can really work well. I think our kids and look at our camp, and one of the reasons we had the numbers that we did is everybody wanted to be here and everybody felt that they were ready to play, or that I think many found out quickly that they're not ready to play at this level. But I think we could have had three teams, and having four is a little easier to run camp. There wasn't really a need to say no to anyone. We had a couple towards the end, but at the end of the day, it was 2 or 3 days. We dealt with it. I think we still have I think 4 or 5 free agents in camp that are trying to earn their way, so to speak, and with some injuries that we've already experienced, they're getting a chance to play through the exhibition schedule.
George, you mentioned obviously, yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing because it's a big decision. It's campus life and less games overall versus billet life and a more pro type schedule in the CHL. There are probably going to be guys that maybe get down there and don't necessarily like it and potentially come back. But the opportunities, like you mentioned, for older players like Jake Carabella, Max Nemesnikov, guys like that, I certainly think that's a positive thing. But you bring up the GOJHL, and I want to kind of touch on that because, like you said, you had no shortage of players at camp, and there's going to be opportunities with other development leagues in this country where guys that maybe were going to go to school all of a sudden see a log jam and think, maybe the CHL is where I need to go. How critical is it to maintain those relationships? Obviously, you guys have very deep ties with the Air Centennials. You just played a preseason game there. How critical is maintaining relationships like that, not only in terms of getting players in, but developing players you have?
Well, I think those relationships are going to continue to be the strength of this year. We've got Cruz Resnick and Carter Lewandowski are going to start there. We may have others, but as 209 birthday players, they're going to get great opportunity to play there and be ready to play for us. I don't think there's any question that they're both elite young players. I think with our number of kids that have returned to us, the best scenario for them is to get some quality minutes and games and experience under their belt and be ready when called upon. If I look back to last year, we started with good intentions, but because of the injuries that we suffered early, particularly on the back end, we had to bring kids like Dawson Morrison and burn his 10 games, before things even the season really even got going, and that was unfair. So we're going to try and be pretty diligent in making sure that kids get settled first. They see some development benefits from the development opportunity that's been presented to them, and then go from there. We have another announcement today on a young man that we've committed to as well that will come out that we're excited about. We signed Hayden Martin recently out of camp, and Robbie Matson. Both of those kids are going to return to their places at Bishop Kearney with Robbie, and with Hayden to Collingwood. He'll be available to us, or both would be available during the season. But I think the bottom line, the kids need to play big minutes, responsible minutes, play in the power play, kill penalties, and lead their teams and in all situations. And I think there's lots of examples of kids that do that and are more ready to play either sometime this year full time or certainly next September when we rally again.
You bring up a couple of the young guys that are now in the fold with the Storm, and obviously, we can jump right into a very impressive draft class. And like I said, I attended some of the camp and caught a preseason game. Pretty impressed with some of these young guys, and it all starts obviously with the second overall pick in Jaakko Wycisk. And man, did he ever score an unbelievable goal in that game I was at against Brampton. Like, this kid looks like the real deal Holyfield, as they say, George. And I'm just curious, it's pretty obvious to people who have seen him in action why he's special, but I'm curious, leading into the draft, you got the number 2 overall pick. What was it about Jaakko and his game and the intangibles he has that made him the guy for you and the rest of the scouting staff at 2?
Well, I think there's no question that we've tried to improve our size and our skill, and he brings both of those things as a young player. I think when I watch him play in the games that he's played in so far, he doesn't seem to be flustered. He seems to be very calm and poised. He's competed when his fuse might get a little shorter, but his fuse is maybe a little long right now when it comes to getting in those battles and things. But I think that when he's determined, he's come up with the puck in most of those situations and hasn't had any question about going to the corner first and being first to the front of the net and getting into the tougher areas of the ice. And he's an excellent skater. He's smart. I think he anticipates the game well. He's a very creative player. I know that he's going to score. We need to provide him with some support around him to allow him to be comfortable. And I think with he and the development of Alex McLean down the middle, I think they're two young centers that have a chance to be top players as early as this year. So it's important that we do the right things with them, handle them the right way, and put him in good situations to continue to gain confidence. But I think that the thing that impressed me about him the other night with he's had the 2 goals, the goal that he scored that was the end-to-end highlight reel type goal is his reaction after it, and there wasn't one. He just went to the bench and it wasn't a big celebration. He wasn't jumping into the glass. He tapped a couple of line mates on the shins and got ready to go again, and that's uncommon today. So I like his demeanor. I think he has a very bright future, and I think so far he's showed us he's willing to work and do the things that are asked of him to the best of his ability, and you can't ask for anything more.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I do think there's something to be said for having some hockey bloodlines with his dad playing pro for so long. I think he knows what it's all about, and he certainly looks like a kid that wants to just get down to business. And I think one thing that impressed us watching him up in the box was his work away from the puck. Like, yeah, it's great to score goals and everything, but his work away from the puck is already very, very good, and we were impressed with that. I want to talk about the kid that you took next in the draft out of that youth Penguins program, which is becoming quite a mill for young prospects, and that's Mark Pape. And I mean, I think that the conversation should begin with that shot. I mean, I think that that's something that would have stuck out to most scouts, but tell me a little bit about the rest of his game, because he certainly looked like a guy that can really, really release a puck.
Yeah, his offensive skills are strong. I think the thing that impressed us most about Mark was his compete. He's just a little under 6 feet, not a real about 165, 70 pounds. So he's still got lots of growth there. But I think his willingness to compete, he showed that right in camp, and he showed it in the 2 exhibition games that even if he's a little light or a little undersized, maybe at this point in time, that's not going to change the way he plays the game. His tenacious, attitude, I suppose, that keeps him to hound pucks on the forecheck and to work hard from when the puck is beating him up the ice to get back and be a part of things. But he can play with good players, and I think he'll become a fan favorite very quickly with the just the tenacious way that he plays and dogs pucks and is physical and can create and generate offense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hockey fans, they love the smaller guys that get their nose dirty. That's always been that way. I want to ask you too, just about your offensive core going forward here. Obviously, adding quite a bit of skill to it through the draft, like we just mentioned, but a lot of returning players that can obviously make a big impact. It obviously starts with an overager like Charlie Paquette, who had just a marvelous year last year and is a kid that has turned into such an impressive leader. Obviously, we'll see what happens with Jet Luchenko. Obviously, we'd prefer to have him back, sure, but there's a bunch of guys too that I think can take a big step forward as well. Guys like Parker Snellgrove and Will McFadden, Alex McLean that you brought up, who looked really impressive as a rookie. How are you feeling overall about your offensive core heading into the season here?
Well, I think there's no question that we're looking for some of those players and others. We hope that Ethan Medema is going to be able to provide the leadership, ability to score. He's proven scorer within our league and is excited to be here. So first and foremost, good person, good citizen, and I think will be a real good influence on our younger players. All those kids can be better. We're looking for Singh and Beauchesne and from the back end, a number of players. We've got 7 defensemen that are returning to us, so there's really no reason that all 7 of them don't take strides and can be a bigger part of our group and really battle for the opportunity to play. We're pleased with our goaltending. I think the development of Zach Jovanovski and Colin Ellsworth is good. We've got Cruz in the wings, and he'll no doubt get a chance to play this year. And up front should be a strength of our team. We can talk a lot about Jet, but he's not here, and until he walks through the door, we're probably wasting our breath. We wish him well. I know he's going to get a good chance to stay where he's at. As I said, that's we really can't do anything about it. That's he's put himself in that situation. So it provides an opportunity. We've got as I said, a few free agents now, a couple more to consider that we're working on. And it's really just an opportunity for someone to say, "Hey, I want those minutes. I want to take his power play minutes or his penalty kill minutes, and give my coaching staff something to think about." And we're looking for about as many as can. Leo Serlin, Hunter McKenzie. There's a long list of guys that can take advantage of the increased opportunity that's going to be there, and it's exciting to see some of the things that we've seen, even in the first 3 exhibition games.
Absolutely. And that's what junior hockey's all about, George, taking opportunities when they present themselves. And you talk about that defensive core, and obviously we mentioned it at the start. Just unbelievable bad luck with injuries last year. A number of guys, including Quinn Beauchesne, that went through a couple injury spells that you just never want to see. But you talk about the returning players, guys that are familiar with the system already, guys that should be a little bigger, stronger, faster. That's always the hope, of course, after a year. Let's start with Quinn. Obviously, he gets drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I think he landed in a great place where he's going to have a chance to really develop into a great prospect for them, given that they don't have a lot on the way, certainly not with his high ceiling skill set. One thing that jumped out to me in camp and in the game that we attended was his willingness to shoot the puck more. And I think that could really lead to some big offensive things for him. What are you looking for out of Quinn? What would you like to see in terms of his development this year?
Personally, I'd like to see him lead. I'd like to see him set a great example, to move the puck, move it quickly. We know that he can shoot the puck more effectively. He can generate offense. I don't think there's any question about that. He's represented his country on 3 different occasions. He's won 3 gold medals. Some of those, those roles that he plays when he plays on those international events, that's a start. I think to be hard to play against, to be a great penalty killer, to play against the other team's top people. Does he need to lead our team in scoring? No. Can he contribute to our scoring and help create offense? Absolutely. He can be a special player, and I think Quinn is ready to, take the next step. I hope, and my belief would be that going to his first development camp and going to his first NHL camp will only add to the, the toolbox, so to speak, on the things and understanding the game. As you say, I can't speak for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but it appears like their pool of young players is maybe a little less than a number of teams, so it appears to be a good spot. They play an up tempo game. They're not a. They have players. You look at the Chris Letang's and many players that are not big guys, but they do really well there. So I'm happy for Quinn. I know that he's been through some adversity with injuries. I think for all these guys, full, consistent, healthy years, I think will translate into a lot more points in the standings for us as a team, and a lot more individual benefits for those players because of our team success.
Yeah, absolutely. And for him, yeah, picking the brain of guys like Chris Letang and Eric Carlson, that can't be a bad thing, certainly. You look at some of the other guys on this decor, obviously that have high ceilings, like Ryland Singh, a great puck mover who dealt with some injuries as well. Noah Jenkin, a veteran guy that you brought in that Cam Allen trade that really got off to a great start. He unfortunately got hurt, but when he played, looked like an extremely effective player. One guy I want to ask you about in particular, though, that ended up getting a lot of minutes, maybe more than what you figured he would because of some of those injuries, was Eric Fassard, who is obviously an NCAA commit as well, but what a big kid. He's already got so much size. He's growing into his body, but he's already got a wide array of tools because of the size. What are you looking for out of him? Because he's just such an interesting kid, the way he plays the game.
Well, just to play more confidently, to be more. As I said, we're not concerned about being responsible, but getting himself involved, being harder to play against. I think that comes with confidence. When you come in mid-season, it's going to be a transition, and it's going to take time. And we're thrilled that he landed here in the middle of the year, but those first couple of months were, you don't catch up, you just can't. And so he's had a great summer. He's come in fit and strong. We've got two or three guys hurt right now. He's one of them, and hopefully not too long. But he and Jenkin and Topper have been banged up here a little bit in the early going, and I think Rowan's close to coming back here this week. But as I said, they all can benefit, and ultimately we can benefit from them all being healthy and consistent and continuing to prove their habits. I see a big difference just in our overall group. Eric's a gym rat, for example, and he's there till the time you got to kind of tell him to go home, and he's not alone. But I see more kids doing that, and that's to me that's encouraging. You mentioned Ryland Singh. Ryland had a great summer of strength and fitness, and has come back lean and strong and faster. And I think as his pace is improving, we know he has great skills and great vision. His confidence, I'm sure, will grow. So I don't think it's a real special recipe or anything. I think getting off to good starts, being confident, staying healthy is a big one for us. It seems to be, and making it real tough on our coaches not to have you out there in all situations is a real good challenge for all those guys.
I certainly think so. And, I was also impressed with how Grant Spada looked. And, you bring up Rowan Top, a guy that, is, I certainly think, a fan favorite just because of the way he works, the sacrifice that he makes physically in his own end, the block shots. He led the team in blocks last year. And, you look at a guy like that. I'm sure you maybe saw the highlight. Like when he scored his first career goal last year, Mark and I almost jumped out of the booth. We were so happy for him. And I think the whole arena it was loud in there when they realized it was two who put that in. Obviously, he's going to wear 12 this year. But when you look at a kid like that, you talk about setting a tone, seeing more guys, putting that work ethic in. I think that he's a guy that just screams what it means to be a Guelph Storm. Like Rowan Top has really turned into one of those grindstone guys that everybody can look to in terms of work ethic. He sets a heck of a tone, George.
Yeah. He's a young man that from the moment he got here at 16, he very routine, very structured, did his work, didn't cut a corner. As I said, I think probably took a little bit of business from some of his teammates because he was, in the gym and doing everything, and now they're in the gym with him. So I think his willingness to stick to it and just understand that his routine is very important to his work and his development and his commitment. And I think he's got it has rubbed off on others. And one of the things that, as I mentioned, I've seen even over the short time that we've been here to start up here is there's more guys in there with Rowan and with Eric that are that we would consider to be gym rats that can't get enough done before they move on to the next part of their day. So that's encouraging. I think it's going to be fun to see a guy like Rowan have an NHL camp. He's off to Minnesota. I think couldn't happen to a better guy that's worked and who knows what can happen. But there's a bunch of them, five of them going to NHL camps back there, and I'm sure that experience, especially for those that it's the first one, will be very beneficial to them personally and us as a team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had to touch on him. I don't think Mark and I do a good job of keeping it a secret. He is one of our favorites. He's just a heck of a kid. We love the guy. You already kind of mentioned them, but talk about your goaltending. You can't go anywhere in this league without good goaltending. And the Guelph Storm have, started to really develop a reputation over the last little while of cranking out great goaltending. And it looks like you got more on the way. Obviously, Cruz Resnick is a very intriguing prospect. You mentioned he's going to get a lot of starts, I would think, with a strong Air Centennials club. But Colin Ellsworth and Zach Jovanovski, both of them looked really, really good in camp. They both had really high flying, shining moments at times last year for a team that was really banged up. And both those kids showed unbelievable promise. You got to be feeling pretty good about where you're at in the net with those two guys, with a lot of runway on their junior careers left, too.
Sure. Well, Zach's being a late birthday, he's draft eligible this year. Colin and Cruz not till next year. They're all still quite young as far as experience goes. We look back to Colin last year without getting too detailed. It was really on us, on me, to have him here. I think there was an expectation to have a little more flexibility for up and downs, but it didn't turn out that way. Behind the scenes, I think that will happen moving forward. So, but he did, he got into 22 games last year, which was pretty unique for a 17 or 16-year-old young man, and handled himself quite well down the stretch. I thought he had an excellent game here the other night. One of the best I've seen from him, competing, battling. I know they're enjoying their work with Mike Parson and Owen Savory here, who are working with our goaltenders. I know that it should be a very healthy competition for all of them. They're good people, but they want the net, and I think that if we can create that competition and they can each show some real good progress here, then they're going to push each other to become better and better. And as you say, you don't win in this league without strong goaltending. Zach had a terrific effort, and I know he let five or six by him here, but the way he played, the confidence that he showed, the poise he had, we were pretty positive about his game after a couple of periods in air on Monday, and look forward to seeing both of them this weekend.
Yeah, Jovo, the thing that sticks out to me about him is his poise back there. He just doesn't let anything bother him. He's a real pro the way he goes about his business. And Colin, like one of the most technically sound young goaltenders I've seen at that age. Like his mechanics are already so good. And you're right, the other night there against Brampton, I mean, he made some saves that were just unbelievable. And you love to see that obviously in preseason. George, I want to also ask you just about, we talk a lot in hockey about culture, the room, the guys being together. It's got to feel pretty good for you to have guys like Braden Bowman and Michael Bushinger and Matt Poitras, guys that have been on your rosters in years past and big impact players too, forging great pro careers, showing up at training camp. Like these guys don't need to do that, but it speaks, I think, a lot to the culture of the Guelph Storm and what guys think about their experiences with the organization to come back and hang out at training camp and spend some time with the young guys. You know that it makes a big difference to the kids. Like that's got to be pretty cool as a guy who's a leader in this organization. It's got to feel pretty great to have guys like that wanting to come back and be a part of this thing still in some small way.
Well, it is important. Quite frankly, I think they miss the structure, the what time to get up, what time to be here, what time to eat, what time to come to the rink. I think they miss that when they move on to the pro level. They're making a lot of those decisions, and so it's not just the guys that go on to pro hockey, but the guys that go on and play in the U Sport or the NCAA. I think there's an element, and I think we've always said here that when you play junior hockey, it's probably the last opportunity that you have with your entire group of teammates to go through the same experiences. When you go to the American League, even if you go to the East Coast League, there's guys that are married or have families or have mortgages, and right now everybody's kind of dealing with the same. There's the odd guy that has little bit more coin in his pocket because he signed an NHL contract, but at the end of the day, they're all experiencing the same things, and it's kind of the last opportunity. You look at Matty Poitras going on or Butch or Jet, for example. They go into that whole new world when they're now, regardless of whether it's the American League or the NHL. It's a completely different setup from what they're used to doing. They're kids. We got to remember that they are kids, and so it's fun to see them. They're not asked to be here. They're welcomed back. I know Bonesy was doing some shooting here with our goalies and Bushy as well at training camp, which is pretty neat for the goaltenders when they're out there with two high NHL draft picks and guys that have gone on and made their way in pro hockey. Cooper Walker's been here a number of days this week. Just won a Calder Cup. Chase Stillman's been around, not a Storm guy, but he's a talented player that's got a new opportunity in Vancouver. So those guys, just being around our guys is helpful. I think our guys can see them work when it's time to skate and do some things in practice, and they don't cut any corners, and those things are only going to make us better. And it's fun to see. And when times are tough, we see a lot of guys rally around their ex teammates or former teammates to get them through some tough times as well. And we've certainly seen signs of that too.
Well, George, I'll end on this. You talk about not cutting corners, and I certainly think that that's something that describes yourself. I mean, you've had a lot of experience in this game, from everything to playing it, to coaching it, to being an executive. You're still doing it. You're one of the winningest coaches and executives in the history of this league. I mean, I feel like I run into you in most rinks I'm in. I mean, whether I see you at the Sleeman Center, you're there all the time, or I'm calling a game for our radio station in air, and there you are. I mean, I'm running into you all over the place. What is it about this game that keeps you going, that keeps you motivated? I mean, you've achieved more than almost anybody else when you look at your peers. What is it about this game and being part of the Guelph Storm that keeps you motivated and keeps you grinding away at it? Because this job's not easy.
Well, it's fun to go to the rink every day, and every day we deal with something different. I think it's really helpful when you've got good kids, and kids are they're going to make bad decisions. You hope they learn from them, and they're limited, but at the end of the day, they're as I said, they are kids, and you want to try and support them as best you can. As an organization, I've it was the one year I was here in the 90s, 96, 98. A lot of those kids still come and spend time together, have a chat. And it is special. I think when you win together, I think it's even more special, and those bonds are everlasting. I do think that Guelph has become our home for a family, and I have my daughters here and a son not too far away. So as I said, it's not home, but it's become our second home, and we enjoy life here in Guelph, and the organization has been terrific to me and my family. So as I said, it's fun to go to the rink every day, and it's fun to go into different rinks and see kids. The game's in a bit of a transition here right now with all the change, new leadership in our league, the changes with the NCAA, there's changes with the NHL. It's a new time, and so to have a small part to play in it is quite a change from when we started a number of decades ago. So it's a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to an exciting year here, and I know the coaches are keyed up and raring to go.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited as well. We can't wait to get back in the rink. Want to let everybody know the only preseason game Rogers is broadcasting will be Friday, September 6th. So you can catch that on Rogers. And of course, we will be there for the home opener against the Otters on the 19th and carry you throughout the season. George, as always, we really appreciate it. The organization, like you said, it's been great to you. Well, you've always been great to us. We really, really appreciate it. And we're excited for a great year of Storm hockey. Thanks so much for doing this, eh?
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for your support during the season, and can't wait to get started.
100%. Remember, you can find this podcast on all your favorite podcast apps and, of course, on our YouTube channel. And like I said, go to the Sleeman Center box office or the Storm website to get tickets to come and see this very exciting young Guelph Storm team. We'll be back next week with more Eye of the Storm.